All right, welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are unpacking a true masterpiece, a novel that literally shifted the entire landscape of global literature. Yep, we're talking about Gabriel Garcia Marquez's 100 Years of Solitude. But hey, we're not just going to sit here and summarize the plot for you. Nope. Instead, we're going to see exactly how this book masterfully bridges that massive gap between whimsical magic and the really harsh historical truths of Latin America. So if you're someone who loves figuring out how big, complex narratives actually mirror the real world, well, you are absolutely in the right place. Okay, let's dive into this. The opening line of this book? Absolutely legendary. I mean, it instantly yanks you across three totally different points in time. You've got the future, facing a firing squad, the present act of remembering, and then this distant afternoon all the way in the past. It's a trip. And honestly, the origin story of this sentence is almost as magical as the book itself. Our sources tell us that one day, back in 1965, Garcia Marquez was just driving his car to Acapulco for a family vacation. And suddenly, bam, the entire vision for this novel just clicked right in his head. It was like lightning. He literally turned his car around on the highway, asked his wife to somehow manage the family's finances for the next few months, and just went straight home to write. Fast forward 18 months, and those words had blossomed into an absolute epic, the very epic that would go on to win him the 1982 Nobel Prize for Literature. Now, to really grasp how this narrative works, we've got to talk about magical realism. In this kind of framework, the supernatural isn't, some alternate sci-fi dimension. It's just completely normal. Meanwhile, everyday, mundane things, those are treated as absolute miracles. Garcia Marquez used this very specific lens to capture the totally unique reality of post-colonial Latin America. And get this, he drew heavy inspiration from his own maternal grandmother, Doña Troncalina. She had this deeply rooted belief in superstition and would tell these incredibly vivid ghost stories to a young Garcia Marquez in this totally deadpan, matter-of-fact tone. So he basically took that exact same tone and applied it to the fictional town of Macondo. It's this place where spirits and literal miracles blend seamlessly with extreme poverty and just everyday daily chores. So, in practice, Macondo is just a wonderfully bizarre place. Picture this, you've got a local priest who actually levitates, but naturally only after drinking a cup of hot chocolate. Makes total sense, right? Then there's a romantic mechanic who is perpetually followed around by this swirling cloud of yellow butterflies. Oh, and how about a relentless rainstorm that lasts exactly 4 years, 11 months, and 2 days? Not a day more, not a day less. And we can't forget the gypsy Melquiades, who basically just brushes off death. I mean, the guy survives leprosy, scurvy, the bubonic plague, and seemingly centuries of other global catastrophes. It's a surreal, completely captivating world that really demands you just check your conventional logic at the door. It pulls you right into this beautiful, dizzying illusion. But there is a very deliberate reason for that illusion.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the jarring figure hidden right beneath all that whimsical magic, 200,000. Yeah, this number pulls us right out of the illusion and drops us square into a really grim reality. 200,000 represents the estimated number of politically motivated deaths in Colombia by the mid-1960s. So while we, the readers, are getting all distracted by levitating priests and swarms of yellow butterflies, the novel is quietly but forcefully addressing the extreme war, suffering, and death happening in the real world. The magic is essentially a Trojan horse. It's a vehicle used to examine the absurdity and the never-ending tragedies of Latin American politics without sounding like some dry academic political manifesto.
So let's contextualize that violence a bit. The novel essentially compresses centuries of actual, real-world historical conflict into the story of Macondo. You see, Colombia's history was heavily marred by constant, brutal warfare between liberal and conservative political factions. We're talking about the Thousand Days War right at the turn of the century, the devastating Banana Strike Massacre of 1928, and a horrific period stretching into the 1960s known simply as La Violencia. Now, our sources point out that Garcia Marquez's own grandfather was actually a veteran of the Thousand Days War. And in the novel, all of this turbulent history is perfectly embodied by the character of Colonel Aurelio Buendia. This guy launches 32 separate armed uprisings and loses every single one of them. It's an impartial but undeniably searing reflection of the cyclical and seemingly futile nature of these real-world civil wars. Which brings us to another extremely critical number, 3,000. This represents the estimated death toll of that 1928 Banana Massacre I just mentioned. In the real world, and this is mirrored almost exactly in the novel, an American fruit company set up this massive plantation in Colombia. Well, the local workers eventually went on strike, just demanding basic, humane working conditions and access to medical services. Pretty standard stuff, right? But instead of sitting down to negotiate, the government sent in the military, and the striking workers, along with their families, were indiscriminately fired upon. 3,000 people. It's an absolute historical tragedy, and it left a profound, lasting impact on a young Garcia Marquez who actually grew up right near where the whole thing happened.
But the tragedy didn't actually end with the violence itself. In the novel, right after the massacre of the workers, the government pumps out this official narrative through every single communication channel they have, just repeating one chilling lie over and over. There were no dead. Meanwhile, the bodies are secretly hauled away on trains and dumped into the sea under the cover of darkness. And tragically, guys, this deeply reflects reality. The real-world government attempted to completely erase the massacre from history, literally, to the point where Garcia Marquez later found that the event had been entirely deleted from his own high school history textbooks. So the crucial point is that the novel uses this event to ask a truly terrifying question. If an entire society just decides to collectively believe a lie, does that lie actually become the truth?
And that brings us to this fascinating academic concept called historiographic metafiction. I know, it sounds like a mouthful, but simply put, it's a narrative that uses real history but intentionally points out that history is not some flawless, objective truth. History is a human construct, usually written by the victors or whoever happens to be in power at a time. By blending real horrific massacres with stuff like magical flying carpets and wandering ghosts, the novel basically forces us to realize that the official version of history is often just another carefully crafted narrative. And I really want you to think about that for a second in your own life. Consider the news you're reading today or the history textbooks you learned from growing up. Who wrote them, whose narrative are they prioritizing, and whose reality might they be erasing entirely?
Let's move to and see how this builds into the broader philosophy of the book. So if objective history is just an illusion, how do these characters actually experience the passage of time? Well, for the Buendia family, time is way less of a straight line moving neatly toward progress and more of an inescapable mechanical trap. They are completely consumed by it. There's no escaping it. Let's look at exactly how time functions in this incredibly strange world.
So, there are two distinct, honestly agonizing experiences of time in Macondo: stagnant time and cyclical time. And both of these were directly inspired by Garcia Marquez's own childhood. Let's start with stagnant time. This comes straight from his grandfather, the war veteran. After the war ended, his grandfather spent decades just sitting on his porch, day in and day out, waiting for a government military pension that was promised to him but literally never arrived. Day after day, just completely frozen in waiting. In the novel, characters constantly get trapped in this stagnant time, locking themselves in small rooms, repeating the exact same meaningless tasks, like making these tiny gold fishes, only to melt them down and make them all over again. On the flip side, you have cyclical time, which comes from his grandmother. Remember her? Because she viewed ghosts as just sharing the exact same living space as her family, the past was never truly in the past for her. It was always there, constantly circling back around. And this brilliantly illustrates the ultimate tragedy of the Buendia family. Get this, over 7 generations, they don't evolve at all. They just spin in endless circles. I mean, they even keep naming their children the exact same things. There are 5 different men named José Arcadio in the book, and all 5 share the exact same personality. They're impulsive, they're physically strong, but they're ultimately doomed by their own reckless desires. Then there are 5 men named Aureliano, and every single one of them is withdrawn, highly intelligent, yet incredibly isolated from the world. The repetition of their names practically guarantees the repetition of their mistakes. It's like they're entirely incapable of breaking out of their generational trauma, just repeating the exact same political and personal failures over a 100-year span. Which brings us to the ultimate question this explainer is going to leave you with. Are we, much like the Buendia family, doomed to a cyclical downward spiral? Are we just going to keep repeating the same wars, the exact same exploitation, the same societal amnesia? I know, it can feel totally fatalistic, but here's the thing. Garcia Marquez didn't actually think it was hopeless. When he stood up to accept his Nobel Prize in 1982, he spoke openly about the intense strife of Latin America, but he made sure to end on a note of defiant hope. He actually challenged humanity to build a world where we break these endless cycles of solitude, a world where love and happiness are actually possible, and where we finally step up and claim our second chance on Earth. It's such a powerful reminder that yes, history might try to trap us in its cycles, but our awareness of those cycles, that is the very key to breaking them. Thank you so much for joining me to explore this incredible material today. Keep questioning the narratives around you, and I'll see you in the next explainer.